Today's video is comparing an aftermarket CCS adapter to the Tesla OEM CCS adapter. These are just on the basic functionalities. I'll make another video plugging in with each one of them. But at this point, it's just kind of comparing what the two have. So for this aftermarket charger, I picked it up off of eBay. I think it was, I don't know, 40, 45 bucks, something like that. But one thing I really like about this adapter is it has the embedded j1772. So these are the two AC charging ports, and these are the three communication ports. You'll see on the Tesla, those two AC charging ports are not implemented, just the three communication ports. So both of the chargers have the three communication ports. That's what's going to enable you to be able to charge. And then on this charger, you'll notice it has a caution marking on this tray, and it will say when you're charging with the j1772, ensure that this charge port valve, I don't know that valve is the right word there, but this cover is securely closed to avoid the risk of electrical leakage. So what it's saying is that these two AC ports are physically connected to these two DC charging ports, and that is a big risk here. If this falls off, or if somebody opens this up, plugs in their j1772, and then they start playing around with these ports will have electrical power running through them. Now, can you get your finger in there? Not really, because they've done a pretty good job isolating it, right? You'd have to kind of wrap your finger around that plastic piece to get to that metal, and I can, so I can feel it. So, but it would take some work, right? Little fingers would have a lot easier chance of doing that. So it's really good that they have this cover, because we wouldn't want children shocking themselves, right, and getting hurt. So on the Tesla one, you don't have that risk because the AC ports are not connected to the DC ports, right? Those two things are independent. One thing I should cover, though, is when you're charging with the j1772 on AC, then it's a risk somebody could reach here, because the j1772 connector just covers that portion. It doesn't cover the two DC connectors. But when you're using a CCS, this whole thing is covered, because you have a connector that will go on it, so it can use those three communication lines. So it's not a risk when you're DC charging of getting shocked, but it is a risk when you're AC charging. Or sorry, DC charging. So yeah, so that's a big thing. This one, I think it supports 500 volts, I think, and then like 150 amps, or anyway, it's like 150 kilowatts is what you can get through this adapter. This adapter, you can do the full 256 kilowatts. And the difference there is that the volts, it can go higher in voltage, but it can't go higher in amperage. So a Tesla, you're bound to the 400 volts of the pack. That's all you're going to charge at, is up to that 400 volts. So even though this will do, 500 or 600 volts or whatever the max volts are on it, and it will say right there, yeah, 500 volts. See if I can get in closer and get it to focus. Yeah, right there. You'll see CCS1, 500 volts, 250 kilowatts max. And then it gives you the spec for the j1772 can go up to 80 amps. And it's IP44 water resistant. So it says it does 256, but the 250 kilowatts, that's at 500 volts. And the Tesla's just not going to charge at 500 volts. You're only going to charge at 400, unless you have a Cybertruck, right? So yeah, so that, even though it says 250 kilowatts, I've gotten it at like 180, but I've never gotten higher than that. And for me, 180 is fine. Most of the time when I charge at 250, it falls off 250 pretty quick and then goes in the high hundreds. So it's not that big of a deal for me. But if you're worried about, something going wrong with the two adapters, right, stick with the Tesla OEM adapter. This one's $300, and then this one you can get them on. Like Amazon, I think one's out there right now for $45. But this one's $300 unless you buy it from somebody used. So anyway, I'll make sure to get a video. I'm going to go on a road trip this weekend. That road trip, I'm going to go and hit some CCS chargers, specifically to kind of do some testing of the two. But even with that, the place I'm going only has CCS charging. So if you have a Tesla and you're going to go into some more remote parts of your state, use PlugShare or a better route planner and figure out what kind of charging you have along the way. This is called a CCS or CCS1 charger. There's also a CCS2. I've never seen one in the US. All I've ever seen is CCS1. And most of the time they'll just call it a CCS. And that's what this is where you have the 3 communication lines and then 2 CCS or 2 DC charging ports. And the whole thing's called a CCS. This is called a j1772. That's called CCS. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. One other thing that both of them have is up here you'll have a charge lock. See that little pin right there? So when you plug it in, that pushes against your car, and that will push forward over the top of the unlocking pin for the CCS charger, so somebody can't unlock you as you're charging. So it's not only so they don't unlock you while you're charging, but if power's flowing to those DC lines and you pull it, it's not good, right? Because AC power goes back and forth, DC power goes in a loop, so it can be a little bit more dangerous to be playing with DC power. So that's a safety and an a-hole preventer, right, of keeping somebody from unplugging you. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. If you have questions, let me know.